Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Talking Smack, where we talk superheroes, movies, animation, and comics. I'm your host, Josh Scar, and joining me this week is Matt. Matt, how you doing?
Doing good. How are you?
Doing wonderfully, because we have an extra guest here this week. We have the wonderful Melissa Flores joining us to talk about her upcoming comic, The Dead Lucky. Melissa, how are you doing?
I'm great. How are you? Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much for taking the time to be here, because this is what I really enjoy talking about is comics and getting to talk to creators and the creative process. That is just right in my wheelhouse. So thank you again for taking the time, and hopefully we make it a little bit worth your while.
Oh, no, I'm so excited. You cannot get me to shut up about this book, but usually I'm talking to myself. So this is nice to talk to other people. That's really cool. So thank you for giving me the opportunity.
Thank you again. So first, let's get to know Melissa a little bit here. From the advanced copy you gave us, the letters section is just so wonderful. It clearly this work is a or this comic is a work of love, a labor of love. And so let us know a little bit about your background. Who is Melissa? Where does she come from?
Well, I'm a Leo. I am kidding. I am a
Me
Leo,
too.
but no, I grew up in Los Angeles. I have been a creative for most of my adult career in terms of an executive or an executive assistant or something in development in terms of Hollywood ever since I graduated USC. What I really always wanted to be was a writer, but at the time when I was trying to be a writer, there were just not a lot of opportunities for people that were either my gender or looked like me. So I kind of put a hold on that and went in a different direction, and that was in creative development. And through a different steps and strategies, I ended up working at Saban Brands for an amazing man called Brian Casantini. As I started as a coordinator for Power Rangers development, and I became a director within about 10 years. So I spent about 10 years with Power Rangers as the director of development and production for Power Rangers. And part of it basically was a lot of different things, but part of my job was to work with any of the licensees or any of the projects that required a story that didn't necessarily involve the television series. So that included comic books, video games, publishing, tours, anything like that that required some knowledge of the lore. I was one of the brand experts from the team, and so I would take a look and give notes and work with, in this case, Boom Studios to make sure that the stories that they told were either in line with the lore, represented the Rangers in a way that we felt they should be represented, but also just things like, hey, we're doing something cool over here. Can we maybe do it in here too? So it was a lot of brand synergy and that sort of thing. And that is how I got to know Kyle. Kyle was the writer that Boom initially launched the Power Rangers comic books with. Thankfully, like thank God for Boom Studios and for Kyle and their patience, because it was absolutely a learning process for us. We had never had somebody tackle Power Rangers quite the way they did in this older, more character developed way. You know, Power Rangers tends to lean a little young sometimes. And I loved comics. I'd loved comics for a while, but I had no knowledge of what it took to make one. So it was definitely a learning experience for me to see how much work and how much effort was involved in every single thing, from the letters to the inks to the sketching to the covers. And it honestly became my favorite part of my job. I even have a shattered grid tattoo
Nice.
because I
That's
just
cool.
fell so in love with what we were doing and how cool it was. And then from Kyle, we had Margaret Bennett and we had Ryan Parrott. And so I was doing all that fun stuff for a while till about 2017. We released a movie. It was a lot of fun. And then Hasbro bought Saban Brands. And so I went to work with Hasbro for about 2 years. And then I wasn't with Hasbro anymore. And that was the opportunity for me to be like, you know what? The world has changed a little. Maybe I might have a shot at actually doing what I've always loved, And through those years, I had actually become quite friendly with Kyle, and Kyle and I actually were friends. And so we had lunch one day, just catching up, and he would always send me Radiant Black, uh, the previews so I can read them, and I'd give him my opinion, which was always like, "Oh my god, you're a genius! This is amazing." I don't think he ever had any actual critique from me after that, but he is just so generous with his success in terms of he knew that I was working on writing. He knew I had a couple projects. I had done a couple things for him already. So he said, "Hey, Radiant Black's doing really well. Ryan's got Rogue Sun. Matt's got Inferno Girl Red. Why don't you pitch me a superhero book and pick a city and pick a story and let me know what you come up with?" And I was like, "Okay, yes, absolutely. I would love to try that." And it actually came together very fast. It took a couple lunches that we're sitting together, and then by the second lunch, we knew this is a story I wanted to tell, The Dead Lucky, and we had the title, The Dead Lucky, and that's when it really hit. And so then it was just a matter of writing the pitch and finding the right artist and then pitching it to Image. And thankfully, they said yes, and we have a book now. So that was pretty cool.
A very good book in my opinion, and not to make this a Kyle Higgins gush fest, but yeah, I agree. I'm a big fanboy of his. I've been collecting his stuff since he started with Nightwing, and I'm really upset that I missed the Kickstarter with the Trap in a book that he wrote with Lance
Mm,
Briggs.
yeah.
I'm very excited to see what that one turns out to be if I can find a copy of that. But yeah, I've heard the backstory to the Trap and how Kyle's just like he admits that he's not necessarily the biggest fan of writing, but if he has a story, if he knows there's a story to be told, he loves to just work with people to get that story. And if it's him that has to write it, he'll write it. But if he can just help and produce, essentially, he'll do that too. And I love that giving spirit that he seems to have for his friends and for stories.
Yeah, he's absolutely a director, as much as he is a producer and a writer. He loves to just bring things out in people and actually create a world around. He's a world builder now. That's what he is.
Yeah,
And it's
yeah,
been
definitely.
really fun to see him explode in the way that I always felt he should have. And so that's been really fun just to see all the cool stuff he's working on and all the way he thinks, and Ryan too, thinks out of the box in terms of what's possible for the medium is really cool. And he constantly surprises me with that. And it makes me want to step up to his level, even though I don't think I ever could, but also just makes me really excited to be even peripherally involved with the stuff that he does. I remember we first became close when he came to us and was like, "I want to do a Shattered Grid promo film." And we're like, "What?"
That was so
He's
cool.
and he's like, "Yeah, yeah. We're like, we just need to make sure you guys are okay." And he's like, "And I want to direct it." And we didn't know him as a director. We knew him as a writer. And he was so passionate that we're like, "Okay, yeah." And I was on set with him. I brought Zed's staff and Rita's scepter from the archives. And they're in there somewhere. If you look at them, they're in there somewhere. He put them in as like Easter eggs. But I got to spend the day on set with him, and just seeing him in his director hat was just so much fun. He's just got so much passion and so much love for creative narrative. And honestly, the Power Ranger books, I think, would not be the same without him. And obviously, Radiant Black now, which is his baby, wouldn't be the same. This world that he's building, it's really cool. And I'm really grateful to be a part of it.
Yeah, I
I
remember.
Go ahead, Matt.
Sorry, I was just gonna say I remember when Josh got really excited about those Power Rangers books launching. I'm a 30 something
Yeah.
white man, so I grew up on Power Rangers, but I'm like 30, man. I'm not gonna read a Power Rangers book. And he was like, no, read it. And I read it and I was like, oh, this is actually really good.
Yeah, he's really smart, and that he said something initially when he was pitching it, which is it never left me, and it was, "I'm not writing Power Rangers as it was.
Sure,
I'm writing it as it made me feel,"
that's
which
good.
is
Yeah,
very different.
yeah,
And what you get when you write from that kind of heart is these beautiful, nuanced, character developed stories that still could arguably fit in the canon,
Yeah.
And we purposely treated it like it did, which I don't think they liked at first because they're like, now there's so many more rules if you want us to fit into canon.
Right.
But it ends up enhancing the experience with the franchise and adding a layer to it that I think the fans have really come to appreciate. And
Yeah, sorry, Melissa, I didn't mean to cut you off there, but yeah, I just
no,
want to
no,
show
no.
off. I've got these are more for you than it is for any listeners, but I've got
Oh,
all of the
nice.
number zeros. Several of them are doubled up with autographs,
Very cool.
and then a buddy and I went to our local comic shop, and we had our guy order like 75 copies of Shattered Grid #1,
Oh my
so we could
gosh.
make sure we got
Oh, so
all of
you
the
got, yeah,
variants.
you could get the variants. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Some of those are so good. Do you have the Rita Repulsa one? There's a Rita Repulsa one that's really good in that style. That's her, I think, with her staff or something. I don't
That's cool.
That's like one of my favorite ones. But just the I have actually a print, like a big long print like this that is the 6 Rangers with their helmets. I bought it at a Power Rangers art show that's hanging above my sofa. Like I really love those prints and they're gorgeous.
Not to discredit Kyle's prowess with the characters and everything, but the covers alone are worth the cover price. But we're going to take a quick break to hear from our friends at the Just in Time podcast. And when we come back, we're going to get into it with Melissa about the Dead Lucky. We'll be right back.
We were looking for a laid-back comedy show that covers current events, beer reviews, and movie reviews. We couldn't find one, so we made the damn thing ourselves. The Justin in Time Show. Find it wherever you listen to podcasts.
And we are back to talk to the wonderful Melissa Flores about her upcoming comic, The Dead Lucky, which is the newest entry into the Massive Verse universe from Image Comics. And you gave us an advanced copy. And I know you were talking about how Kyle and Ryan have created these amazing books. The Dead Lucky issue #1 stands up on its own, in my opinion. This thing can stand up next to Radiant Black and Rogue Sun, and I haven't read Infernal Girl Red yet, so I don't know about that one. So maybe,
But Matt's writing it, so it's gonna be great. Yeah.
yeah. So I think this stands up just with right there with them, and it blends in so well with the universe, and it's
Oh,
a
thank you
compelling
so much.
story on its own too. So I'm very excited to continue reading this.
Thank you. Thank you. That's actually a relief. I mean, it's one of those things where I'm always nervous that I'm looking at, I don't see the forest for the trees. And I'm like, I know I'm putting my heart and soul into this, but what if it's not good? Even though Kyle's like, no, Melissa, it's good. And I'm like, yeah, but you don't know. What if it's not? So I really do appreciate that. Thank you for the kind words.
I'm a little curious about one thing, like a nuts and bolts thing. Maybe this is too, inside baseball, but like, this book really, like Josh was saying, it's a great book and it stands on its own 2 feet, but it's also part of this like sort of larger superhero universe that's kind of
Hmm.
cropping up very quickly. It seems like
Yeah.
how much of that is like, you imagine something like DC or Marvel where it's like, okay, you can't use this character, you can't use that character, this guy's dead, whatever. How much of is there like coordination with the other writers, or is it just like you're in the same universe, but it's your own thing? Just go.
It is unique. It's not DC or Marvel in that everybody owns their own characters because
Sure,
it's with Image. We all it's there are stories that we're telling. The fantastic thing about it is that we have all worked together before on Power Rangers and other projects, and we genuinely like each other, and we genuinely believe that this is something incredibly special that we're all doing. And Michael Busuttil is the editor on all these books. So he is absolutely the glue that keeps us going. And Kyle is also a creative consultant on my book as well. So he
gotcha.
reads everything, gives his notes, is very much a part of the process. So the books are meant to stand on their own. They're not, you're not, and I don't want to say never because you never know,
Sure,
but you're not going to get like a Dark Crisis kind of story where you have to buy, issue 7 here and issue 5 here and issue
yeah,
25 here to get the complete story of one book. I think the idea with something like a supermassive is that that's where you see those characters interact in big ways.
sure.
Otherwise, they're in their own cities for a reason.
That
They all
makes sense.
have their own stories, their own characters. Now, who knows? One day you might see, my Maria get transferred to New Orleans. But right now, I think everybody's just focused on trying to make as good a book as possible that works for them. And we all, when developing the story, at least for me, and I'm sure it was the same for the other guys, we made sure that our stories felt different, that our characters felt different, that even our cities felt different. So it's adding to a complementing whole, not necessarily taking anything away from anyone else.
Of all these books, I've only really followed Radiant Black. But
Hmm.
just reading this first issue, it does, there is a distinct voice there where it's like that book has its own specific kind of character, and in this book, BB is a very distinct kind of character in her own right.
Yeah.
Where I'm not a veteran, but I have a lot of friends who are, and I've talked to them, and it feels very true to the experiences that they have shared with me, which is like a very different kind of thing than I get in Radiant Black. So there is that very distinct vibe.
Yeah, I mean, it was one of those things that was really important to me because I'm not a veteran either and I'm not a soldier either. And what I didn't want was this to feel cheap or sensationalizing any of that. What I wanted to do was have it feel authentic and real to the character and also honor it because it's based not on me personally. A lot of BB is in me, just like a lot of, Kyle is in Nathan, and based, on real thoughts and feelings. But BB itself is based on veterans that I know, and inspired by veterans that I know, most prominently my partner of 10 years
Yeah,
and other veterans that we have known and lost the last few years. And it was based on this desire to understand where they're coming from, because as a civilian, it is one of those things where I just feel incredibly frustrated because I'm a writer and I'm supposed to be able to get in anybody's head to be told you just don't get it, you don't
yeah,
understand. And I'm like, it's very egotistical of me to be like, yes, I do. What are you talking about? Of course I do. I can totally imagine what that'd be. You never know until when you have these experiences with a platoon, with a squad, with your team members, and they're very, very high and very low. These kind of moments bond you together in ways. And you see it with anything. You see a traumatic, if you in having a traumatic experience with anybody, you're going to feel closer to them because of what you went through together.
yeah,
So half of it is me being like, okay, I want to pay homage to this. I want this to be authentic to the experience because I want people who read this who either have survivor's guilt or PTSD or trauma to say like, look, you are heard. People see you. People love you. We may not get it all the time and we may say and do some stupid things because we're trying to help, but I promise we love you.
yeah,
And it's also making sure that we're telling a superhero story that's fun and unique and interesting and maybe shines a light on a character that people might not see in a DC or a Marvel because this isn't either. It's Massiverse, and those
yeah,
stories and the characters and the superheroes maybe feel a little more genuine. They're not meant to be gods. They're meant to be real people with real problems living today
yeah,
in this kind of world. And so Dead Luckies, set in San Francisco with a biracial, pansexual former soldier. It's it's meant to reflect the world I see living in Los Angeles and in California. And so it's going to be very different than maybe a New Orleans or Chicago.
yeah. Yeah, and there's a bit early, the bit that struck me, I think early on in the book, there's a scene where the character says something about sitting with their back to the door,
Yeah.
which was like, again, not a veteran myself, but like almost to a one, every single one I've spoken to has that same, I don't know how you describe it, but a sense that like that's, you want to be able to know entry points and things like that no matter what. And I was like, okay,
Yeah.
I, there is, I don't know if this person's a veteran or the writer's a veteran. I didn't know if you were a veteran, but there's a kernel of authenticity, again, based on me also as a civilian.
I wanted it to be that way. And I interviewed a lot of people, a lot of veterans, and I did a lot of research. And I also, I live with one. So, and it's based on the experiences that I see where she never wants her back to a door. She always wants to make sure we check the exit points. She's said stuff to me like, if you're in a situation with a shooting, don't go with the crowd, go the other way. Like,
Yep.
there's things that she says that are so distinct and different that somebody else might not say or might not do. Uh, there's things she can't watch. And we we also lost a friend pretty recently who was a veteran, who it was really heartbreaking the way we lost him. And it just it was one of those things where I am processing my grief in that
Yeah.
way.
Yeah.
But I want it also to feel authentic. I don't want this. I don't want a soldier to read this and be taken out of the story because something isn't real. So I do make sure, and thank God for Sandra Consulting, I do make sure that, hey, is this what they would say? Like, even putting together BB's service record, I like made sure I knew exactly what everything was, what was possible, what her career looked like when she started, when she left, how she became captain, who was she over, what her platoon was like. Like, I did a lot of just making sure it was authentic to the experience so I can have those little moments where she says, I don't want my back to a door.
Yeah.
And people like you will be like, oh, that makes sense. Even the playing with the dog tags,
Yep.
which those tiny moments where it's the same thing that why I don't amplify that she's biracial. I don't amplify that she's pansexual. It's just part of who she is. So you see tiny moments where that experience comes out. Like, there's a scene where her parents live in Chinatown and run a restaurant called the Chi Mexicu, which is Chinese, Mexican, American fusion. And you see an ofrenda at the counter.
I was going to ask about the ofrenda.
Yeah, which is a Day of the Dead altar. You see a little lucky Chinese cat, which is actually Japanese, not Chinese, but so many Chinese restaurants have them.
Yep.
So, and my girlfriend's Chinese, my best friend's Chinese, I'm Mexican. So I'm really trying to give little tiny moments. Even the suit is based on a Mexican calavera. So we're
I was
taking,
wondering about that. Yeah.
yeah, we're taking parts of her that make up who she is and putting them in, but not using it as a loudspeaker. Instead, just how I feel as an American. I am all these things. I am Latino, I'm female, I'm LGBTQ, but it doesn't inform who I am personally. When I think about myself, I'm like, I'm defined by the work I do and by the way I handle certain situations. It
Sure.
just, the gayness just comes out sometimes when I see a hot girl, like that sort of thing. And that's kind of her. So you kind of see those tiny moments where she's checking out a girl or she's checking out a guy, or, you know, her mom is making her eat something weird that's a fusion but supposed to taste delicious. So even coming to the recipes, I've been working with Sandra to like make sure we have what are cool fusion recipes that we could come up with that would sound like somebody would want to try in this world that maybe doesn't work together but should. I mean, or shouldn't work together but does.
Yeah. That's the fun kind of research.
Yeah.
I was going to ask if those bao buns that the mom makes in the restaurant, if those are real, based on real foods that you have tried, or if it was just one of those collaboration moments where you're like, this sounds like it would be good.
I've eaten so much Mexican food and so much Asian food, like Chinese, Korean, like that is like, I feel like I eat more of that than I do my own like Mexican food sometimes. And so even if it doesn't exist, like we've thought about it, we've come up with a recipe for it. And thankfully I have enough cooks in my family that I'll know something tastes good or not. So if birria baos don't exist now, they definitely will. It'll be fun.
So let's talk a little bit about the setting here, because the official newsletter that dropped after, I believe, back in March,
Mhm.
after Supermassive came out, the newsletter said that the Dead Lucky was going to be like a crossover of Blade Runner and RoboCop with Arcane mixed in.
Yeah.
Which, reading this first issue, I can definitely see a lot of that in there. I haven't seen Arcane yet, but I've seen clips and memes and stuff, so I get the idea. Um,
Yeah.
so like I get that a lot. So where did those kind of inspirations come from?
I really love cyber tech. I am obsessed with tech. I am obsessed with the idea of using those enhancements and to make a body feel different or better, or even I'm obsessed with robots. I just obsessed with the idea of sentience and what it means. And I'm also obsessed with the paranormal. I grew up in a haunted house. So Blade Runner and Arcane and those kind of stories really touched me in a different way, especially Blade Runner, because the whole idea of is what does it mean to be human? And I think now, especially in the world that we live in, it sometimes feels like not even human people are human sometimes, in terms of what does it mean to be human? Does it mean you have empathy? Does it mean you have feelings? Does it mean you care about other people? Or where do you draw that line? And San Francisco specifically is so tech focused. It is the birth of Silicon Valley. It is, where all the when I went to San Francisco that's where Sandra's from, and I would just see, self-driving cars driving everywhere and all these crazy different innovations, and this is where all the tech bros live. And I wanted something that felt different to the worlds that already existed. And I really wanted to play with the archetypes of what it means to be living with the tech versus old culture. And that's what San Francisco is. And you have Chinatown, which is so full of culture. You have these incredible alleys, which you discover only existed because the Chinese people weren't allowed to be anywhere else. So they had to be in this area. And then you have these incredible skyscrapers in the financial district. And then you've got Castro with all that history. And it just felt like a good marriage. When I thought about what I wanted this book to be, and when I thought about the inspirations, which was, I really loved Blade Runner and the idea of what it means to be human. And I really loved Arcane and the idea of the tragedy of us versus them. San Francisco seemed like the perfect setting, especially for the story I wanted to tell with BB, who is living in between so many different worlds. I hope that answered your question. I know that was a little rambly.
No, that was good. I liked it because, again, if you know where the inspiration comes from, you can see it. But to hear what brought all of that out is definitely something I like to hear. If it's not too spoilery, can we talk a little bit about BB's coping mechanism?
As long as we don't talk about the last few pages.
That's fine.
She does have a quirk. Yeah. So let's just say she has a quirk. She has her own way of coping, and not a lot of people are going to understand it at first. But I thought it was a really fun vehicle for the book. I really wanted to be a little fourth wall breaking in a way, and I wanted her to talk to people, but not talk to the people she needs to speak to, if that makes sense. So the book opens in a therapy session, and you realize that she doesn't talk to the therapist, but you do hear what she's thinking. And I just really liked that. I thought it was fun. I thought it was a nice way to introduce the world, but also keep BB's hesitation in sharing herself authentic and real.
Well, it's such an interesting flavor too, because once in a while, a couple times, I guess minor spoilers in this first issue, she'll say something and someone's like, "What'd you say? You talking to me?" Which is like not usually how you see that kind of thing deployed, right? Where it's like,
Yeah.
they're breaking the fourth wall, and then it's Zach and Saved by the Bell freezing time and then going back to it, as opposed to like, wait, I'm here.
Yeah.
You're talking, and I don't know what you're talking about.
She came back weird, and everybody just kind of has to accept it. They're like, "Army made you weird." She's like, "Yep." And he's like, "All right."
Talking to myself, definitely, just myself.
After the first couple of times, I was kind of taking that as she was kind of afraid to be alone with her thoughts, and it was just maybe a clever way of getting rid of the noir style narration. Either way, I really enjoyed it, and I thought that was really cool.
Oh, thank you so much. It was a lot of fun. We thought it was really cool, and we thought it was a fun way to make this book feel unique, but also let the audience in a way that maybe she wasn't letting anybody else in.
Yeah, and that actually brings up my next point that I had with the first time we see her use her coping mechanism. She gives a soliloquy a little bit about like what is home. Home's not what I thought it was anymore, and that actually ran kind of made me feel like we were in a Rambo First Blood kind of moment, where the good Rambo, not the like crazy steroided out action hero Rambo, the one that like could have been a Best Picture nominee.
Yeah.
It didn't feel like it was a very over the top moment, but it did have that PTSD kind of moment where home is no longer the same for me anymore because of what I've experienced.
Yeah, well, it's one of those things where, she grew up in San Francisco. This is a city that she knows and loves, and it had such character and solace for her. And then she went away for 10 years or however long she was in the army and came back. And not only did she change quite a bit, but so did everybody else. And the city itself changed. Like, you see San Francisco, not the way it is now, but in the way it could be maybe in 5 years. Even though it's meant to take place now, everything is based on technology that we see being actively developed that will probably be out soon. So this is meant to be a very realistic future city, but the city has basically been privatized by a company called Morrow. And so the idea is that Morrow has come in and basically petitioned the government to say, look, we love San Francisco. This is where our headquarters is. We want to take everything off your hands, medical, crime, everything. We're going to take care of it. We're going to create the perfect city of tomorrow. And it basically is a test case. So there's no other city like it in the world. It is just San Francisco. And they've unleashed these big bots, and it's become almost military statey, but under the guise of freedom and under the guise of like healthcare for all and all these things. And for BB, it is just to come back to that environment, to expect to come home and discover that home is no longer exists the way she wants it to, is in itself a traumatizing experience. Because what is she going to do? She doesn't know. There's no place that's really where to go. She's, even if she goes into a restaurant, Morrow's there.
Yeah.
So it definitely was a very conscious decision to make sure that she felt as displaced as possible, because I'm one of those people that has to make our heroes as uncomfortable and miserable as possible.
Well, I think it touches on some stuff that not just the tech, not just, coming back home, but, you hear a lot about San Francisco, especially, like there's this massive juxtaposition between the rich
Mhm.
Silicon Valley guys and like
And the poor, yeah.
the poor. And there's some specific call outs to this in this first issue where they're talking about the way this company is reacting to like Chinatown versus the rich part of town.
Yeah.
So it's just it feels like it's touching on a lot of different things in a really interesting way.
It's meant to. It's meant to. I mean, maybe it wasn't national news just because I'm in California and so we hear this stuff. I had gone to San Francisco when I was first writing the book. I'd been there plenty of times, but I'd gone specifically to walk every district, to take a bunch of pictures, to just feel the city for myself. And at the time, the big news was that people were starting to leave their car doors open and their trunks open because they were so tired of their windows being smashed and stuff getting taken.
Just come get
That
it.
was a big story in San Francisco at the time. They're just, and it was genuinely, it felt dystopian because we're in the middle of like the beautiful hotel. You look down, there's a beautiful skating rink because it was in the middle of Christmas, and then you cross the corner and it just didn't feel safe anymore. And then you see the trolley, and it just was such an interesting dichotomy, especially with the gentrification that's happening even outside of San Francisco, because now, because of COVID, they don't necessarily have to work in the office anymore. So all these tech bros are now moving out of San Francisco too, and they're buying up all these suburbs that used to be affordable.
Yep.
A lot of these richer people, not just tech bros, I'm being like so general, sorry, but just, richer people are moving out of the city. And so now, like, even the small town that her parents live used to be so cheap to live, and now it's just exploded, and it's as expensive as LA to live in this small farming town. And it is very interesting to see the displacement that's happening and the divide, especially as we've seen uh, the rich get richer and the poor get poorer in this economy.
Yep.
It's meant to touch on that. Absolutely. I'm not trying to politicize anything. I'm just trying to tell a good story, but this is the world that we live in. And so I wanted to reflect that and have her deal with that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's very much a great perspective. I think that You spent the time there, you saw it, and then you're translating it here. And again, the RoboCop comparisons are right there too with the inspirations.
Hmm.
So it all makes sense, even if you don't want to take it as a modern day allegory. You can still be like, oh, it's like RoboCop. Okay, so if you want to kind of stick
Yeah.
your head in the sand a little bit. Um, but let's talk a little bit about the creative side here. So you have art by I'm sorry if I butcher these names. You have art by French Carlo Magno.
I'm gonna ask him one day how to not butcher his name. It's yeah, Carlo Magno, I think, and
Carlo Magno.
Mattia Iacono is
I was
on
going to do
color.
Iacono. All right.
Is on colors, and Becca Carey's letters. The actual suit, BB's hero suit, is designed by a wonderful artist named Federico Sabatini, who I think was doing Moon Knight for Marvel and was doing some other stuff for Marvel as well. He's absolutely fantastic. And then French designed the rest of the stuff. But they are an absolute dream team to work on with. They are fantastic. The inks that I get every day are just incredible. And then the way that Mattia layers these colors are just constantly surprising to me. Even just the first couple pages when you're sitting in a therapist office, you think, oh, it's just a therapist office. How do you make that exciting? And the colors and the art uh, just make it feel so dynamic and interesting. And when I script things, I script it a little bit like I'm storyboarding or like I'm writing. So just like, let's talk. BB's playing with this, BB's playing with that. But it feels like the shots are so intentional when he puts them in. Um, and but I've had people talk to me about it that they're like, oh, just seeing BB playing with her dog tags, which is meant to be such an innocuous thing, like they get it immediately. They're like, no, it's a fidget thing. She does it when she's uncomfortable. And the fact that it's one issue and there's a few pages where she does that, but they picked it up. That's due to French and Mattia. And I'm so blessed to work with them. They're so passionate and so incredible and just really, really genuinely nice guys. So very lucky. And Becca and Michael edits all these books and Becca letters them all. So it's so crucial to have them to make sure this feels like we're all in the same universe. And it's like Michael just I don't know when he sleeps, but very lucky to have him. Yeah.
Yeah, seriously. With the BB debuting at the end of Supermassive, what was that like for you? What was that conversation where you had that kind of post credits scene of her debut?
Kyle said it was a possibility, and I really, 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 really wanted it to happen because that would have been like if there's any way to debut BB, like why wouldn't it? Like, of course, I would want it to be at the end of Supermassive. Like, I was so jealous that everybody was in Supermassive, and like we hadn't announced BB yet, so I couldn't play. And so the opportunity to put her in the last couple pages and have her introduced that way was just very, very cool. It was just an idea by Kyle, and thankfully it worked out. We were able to get those pages in and just come up with a cool way to introduce the character with still leaving a little mystery for who she is, so that when you actually saw her in the book, you can get some answers to those questions. But I really thought it was cool, and I felt very lucky to be a part of Supermassive, at least in that way, in a tiny way, because I just really loved Supermassive. I think those guys just did an amazing job. It was so cool to
Is that a
watch.
bit that you wrote, or was it just a thing
Yeah.
where? Cool,
Yeah,
very
all
cool.
they told me was, they gave me the script and they gave me the pages, and they basically said, "Maybe the guy's still alive," and she stamps it out.
Cool.
And so they're like, "Give us 2 pages." So we did. And then French drew them and Mattia colored them and Becca lettered them. So that
Awesome.
those 2 pages, yeah, the team worked on those together.
Cool, very cool.
We talked a little bit about the suit. Can you talk about the design process where you got to the point where you're like, nailed it, that's it, we're good?
Yeah, so I was working with, Federico on the suit, and basically it was one of those things where I really wanted to showcase my culture in a superhero outfit, but not have it be Coco, but I am obsessed with skulls. I've always been obsessed with skulls, and I've always been obsessed with the sugar skulls. I think they're gorgeous, and I'm like, that would be a perfect freaking helmet. That would be really freaking cool if we could figure out how to nail that design. Nobody's done that before. And that would be really fun and unique and very immediately like reminiscent of something that's in the culture, but not in your face about it. And um, so I just threw a bunch of Day of the Dead skulls and women wearing, the makeup at Federico, and then I said I wanted it to be Toku inspired because this is to pay homage to the Toku genre because this book is a robot book. It's a mech book. So I wanted to make sure it felt Toku, very tight fit with a helmet, that sort of thing. And so he just kind of ran with it. We ended up with maybe 2 or 3 designs. And then it was just a matter, I mean, he nailed it. And then it was just a matter of colors. How do we make this character feel unique and not Radiant Black or Rogue Sun, like they're different color palettes. And so we kind of went, because of the Sugar Skull inspiration, more of a pink purpley kind of mood. And it really works for her. I think it makes her feminine, but very badass. And that skull, I think, just puts it into place and grounds her in a way that feels incredibly unique and a lot of fun. And we're really lucky to have it. It looks so cool. And I'm just so happy with it. And I wanted a simple enough base that if we ever do decide to give her power ups, because that is a very Toku thing, that is something we can do. And I think it's probably I'm happy with it. I think it's gorgeous, and I'm really excited that I just keep seeing it, especially in these retailer covers and these different covers, these variants, all these other amazing artists, their takes on this costume. I'm just like, this is so good.
Yeah,
I hope there's a
too.
camera on you. I was just gonna say, I hope there's a camera on you the first time you see a cosplay of it.
It's so funny. I was just like, how much is it going to cost me to like make my own helmet? I'm like, that's going to be a couple grand. I'm like, oh, well then maybe later.
Kyle has some hookups. He can probably get you a helmet made by someone.
It's going to happen. Like, there's no way. I'm going to get a helmet and I'm going to get a tattoo. And that is just something I know it's going to happen. It's just a matter of when.
Yeah, I interrupted you, Matt. Sorry.
Before I was going to say it's a very distinctive look, and I feel like you were talking about the color palette. I feel like it's distinct from these characters that you guys are working with in this melting pot, but I feel like it's distinct from like most other stuff on the stands too. Like you see, some superheroes who like have the purple and the like pink and the yellow. I feel like it really helps her stand out from like the entire pack, which is very cool.
Yeah. Well, even the cover for page 1, I just feel like we wanted something that, like, when you looked at it amongst all the other books on the shelves, that people would immediately be drawn to it. And I think French accomplished that beautifully. But that first cover was so intentional in trying to create this super clean, beautiful cover that showcased the costume in a gorgeous way. And also, again, made it feel distinct and made it feel different. And even with like the dog tags in her hand, it's so perfect. When San Francisco in the background, I got really lucky. And Kyle was a big part of that process too. Making sure he really wanted to nail that cover. And it wouldn't be what it is without any of them. It's fantastic. I'm so lucky.
Yeah.
I know I keep saying that, but I genuinely feel that way.
And you were talking about cosplay, but it also is a look that feels like it is simplistic, feels like it's not the right word, but it feels like I can imagine that as like, it's not overly complex. I can see that as something that somebody could make and wear in the real world without.
Yeah. I mean, I come from Power Rangers, and one of my favorite things about Power Rangers was cosplay and seeing people dress up as Rangers and make their own helmets and make their own Rangers. And that's something I've always felt very passionate about. Like, whatever I create, it has to be practical in terms of you can wear it. It looks good in a real world setting. You don't have to be wearing like a CGI harness if it's ever live action. Like, I really wanted the suit to feel like you could live in it, because again, BB is a soldier. She's not for the frills. That suit serves a very specific purpose, and it's her identity. And so she wouldn't be a person that wants a cape.
Yep, that makes perfect sense.
As cool as that would be.
Without getting into too many spoilers, can we talk a little bit about her power set or her abilities beyond just the military training?
Yeah, so purposely we don't reveal the origin of her powers. That will come later. But BB has the ability to see electricity and electrical currents and manipulate them. So energy, she knows how to, and that basically allows her to take control of electronics, mechs, and robots, which you get a lot of in San Francisco because Morrow has put bots on every street, called them guardians, and they're now protecting the people, quote unquote. So she is able to control them in a way that maybe Morrow can't. And so she has created her own bot named Ghost and basically treats it like her partner. So she's basically brought Ghost to life with her powers, and he's her BFF. He's her buddy. They work together. She doesn't work alone, and so it's very much a girl in her mech, and she still does not have full control of them, and she's still figuring out how they work. But being able to manipulate electricity is the one thing that she does very, very well. And you see it come up in unexpected ways. And you see how she sees the energy and how she interacts with it is very telling to her character and what it means for her in general.
I thought the idea of her being the power source for the robot was very unique and very clever, considering her power set. So knowing that she is also that connected with Ghost is really interesting. I think that obviously leads to some really interesting story developments down the line.
Yes, I'm so excited for. I mean, there's still a couple surprises in issue 1 that I don't want to spoil, obviously, but her powers are the way they are for a reason, and her relationship with Ghost is something she finds comfort in because she no longer has a platoon. She's lost most of her platoon and she's not used to fighting alone. So Ghost is her stand-in a way. And it's not necessarily healthy for that to be a thing, especially when you have real live people like Eddie, her best friend, who is also her ex, and her parents who are trying so hard to connect with her. But she's coping how she can. And that means getting in a big mech and beating people up sometimes.
Which there are preview pages available in a Gizmodo exclusive that we'll link in the description here. But I'm looking at the image and thinking about it. I'm seeing a little bit of Ed 209 in there. Was that intentional, or is that just me making something up?
You know, it was not intentional because I don't know what Ed 209 is. Is that embarrassing?
Oh, he's from RoboCop.
Oh,
It's the.
it's been so long. I just like it's been so long since I've seen
I'll
RoboCop.
edit that part out so you keep your street cred.
Appreciate it. No, I loved RoboCop, but it's been a minute. I'm not gonna lie, but no, it wasn't intentional. We purposely for both the bots, Morrow's bots and Salvation Gang when they get them, and because they're gonna want to keep up with BB and her bots. We looked at real world robotics and where they are now, and we purposely tried to make sure we weren't going too fantastical. We were going to something that felt achievable. Ghost is the exception in that Ghost is meant to feel because she's bringing him to life. He is capable of things that maybe the Borobots aren't, or the I don't want to spoil anything. So the Salvation Gangs might not be able to. And for RoboCop, again, it's the exploring of what it means to be alive. Right? What does it mean when BB is bringing Ghost to life? What does that mean for that character? And it's also Morrow's obsession with it too. Morrow is ultimately obsessed with bringing things to life, trying to get as close to sentience as possible. And you're going to meet a couple characters, and you're going to start seeing they're leading the charge with cybernetics and with implants. And so it's kind of like, where does the robot end and where does the human begin? And that's what they're really obsessed with. And so you're going to see them really become very interested in BB because she's able to do on instinct what they, with all their millions, cannot. And so it's going to really bug the heck out of them. But now I have to watch RoboCop again, so I don't do that again.
Well, again, I just pulled it out of my butt. The legs and the body design look very similar to Ed, but you put him more in an upright position instead of the horizontal that the body is
Yeah.
in, but the legs, I'm like, oh, that's kind of Ed,
Yeah,
but I guess not.
it's
So,
very froggy. Like you see in the
oh
preview
yeah,
things,
yeah,
like you
yeah.
see, like I purposely wanted him to feel very agile and jumpy, and French put him together really well. But you can probably ask French. French would probably be able to tell you if it was Ghost, or I'm sorry, RoboCop inspired, because he's the one that came up with that beautiful design, which I love. He looks so dangerous, but also so cuddly. Like I just want to hold hands with him.
The Roger is a nice touch too.
Yes. It was originally copy, but for a very specific reason, we changed it to Roger.
Yep.
That's all I have for my questions. Matt, do you have anything else?
Yeah, I guess, I mean, I'm curious, and maybe this is like maybe this is a silly question, but is this like a book where I'm sort of curious, like how far out the view is? Like, do you have a year, 2 years mapped out? Are you trying to like plan as you go? How are you?
I have I have long hopes, uh,
Sure.
but short expectations. If you know what, if that makes sense. Like I have
Comics,
specific,
yeah.
yeah, I have arcs planned out through specific. I want more than 6 issues.
Yeah.
I'm hoping I get more than 6 issues. That's why I really hope people sign up for FOC and like before FOC and pre-order the book, because I want as many as I can. I'm hoping I could take this book as long as possible. If I can get it to at least 12 issues, I think we'll have an amazing story. If I get only 6, I think we'll still have a good one, because I have a lot of ideas, and it just
Yeah.
there's so much fun things to explore with San Francisco, with BB, and with the characters. You haven't met the characters. I mean, you guys have, but you haven't met half the characters that live in San Francisco. Like we have a cop named Maria, which I really love. She's super interesting. She's got that. We've got a moral representative named Valentine, who's a lot of fun. Who says does some really unexpected things, and Eddie, and like, all these different characters. I think there's so much left to explore. We have a very tight 6-issue arc. And then, where I go from that is planned out. But if we only get 6 issues, then hopefully it'll be a satisfying story. I'm hoping we get more. I love BB and I love the Dead Lucky, so I'm hoping we can take it as long as we can.
Yeah.
But that's really up to Image and up to the buyers, the readers.
With the little influence we have, we can promise you that we'll be sharing the crap out of this book, because issue 1 is awesome, and I'm really hoping we can spend some more time with this character.
The very modest smack bump. We'll see.
I really appreciate that. Thank you so much. It is very nerve-wracking. I think I know how to write. I think I know what I'm doing, but I am a debut writer, and in terms of a comic book, and so I really appreciate people giving me a chance and taking a look at the book. And anybody that likes the book, you're my best friend forever. So thank you so much. And if you don't like the book, that's okay. I know everything's not for everybody, but if you do like the book, you're amazing, and I want to get to know you more. So,
well, my email is no. As I said earlier, and as I tweeted out earlier, this you can feel the labor of love in this, between the art, the writing, everything, and the fact that it exists in the massive verse hopefully gives it enough of a bump that it can continue beyond 6 or even 12 issues, because there's definitely a lot to explore in this, and there's some subtext and some breadcrumbs that I maybe I'm seeing them, or maybe I'm not, just like Ed. We'll see. This is fantastic writing at the very least, and it's a really interesting world. As you said, final cutoff day is Monday, July 11th. So you got a little bit of time to get to your local comic shop and pre-order the Dead Lucky #1 and get any variant copies you want as well, because all those variant covers are fantastic too.
Do you know when the issue actually drops? If
3rd.
someone misses August 3rd, okay, in case
August
you missed
3rd.
that cutoff date.
Yes. So I will be at San Diego Comic-Con with the rest of the crew, and we have a signing at Image. No, but the book won't be out by then. But then I will be at C2E2
Oh, cool.
right after. I'm flying to Chicago literally the next day, and I will be signing there, and hopefully you'll be able to actually. I'm really nervous about C2E2. I'm nervous. Comic-Con I go to all the time. I've never been to C2E2. I was born in Chicago, and I've never been since I was too, so I don't remember it. So I'm excited to go, but I'm also that's the first time I'm actually going to be in company of people beyond the comic book shops that first day that have actually read the book. So it is terrifyingly nervous, and if I am drunk that first night, I don't drink, but I probably will take at least a couple shots just to get the nerves down. But I'm very
I know Kyle's doing a meetup in Lockport to kind of celebrate C2E2 as well. Will you be part of that, or is that just a Kyle thing?
yeah, I'm hoping. I'm terrified that I'm going to get COVID at
Yeah.
Comic-Con and then not be able to go to C2E2. So I'm going to try to get boosted and all that fun stuff before I go.
Mm.
But yeah, the plan is to go. I'm really excited. I have a very busy July just because I have some other projects that are ramping up, and hopefully I can announce those soon. So it's going to be crazy. But the plan right now, I have my tickets, I have my hotel room, is to go to Chicago, and the only thing that could probably stop me is a positive COVID test. So we're just praying that it doesn't happen.
I haven't been to C2E2 since the before times. But it's a cool little show, and I think you'll have a good time.
I'm
It
excited.
is a lot of fun. They spend a lot of time making the creators or putting the creators in a really good space. I think, like, obviously you've got the celebrities that get royal treatment, but the creators row, or the creative section, is just awesome. And yeah, I don't think I've been to a C2E2 since 2018. I think when my second child was just a few weeks old, we brought her at the risk of con cough because I needed to have Kyle sign a bunch of my comics. I appreciate, Melissa, so much of you making the time to be here. And again, for the preview copy, the Dead Lucky, I can't praise this enough. It's so much fun. It's so good. And again, you can feel the passion behind it. It resonates. So thank you for making such a cool comic. Even if it only goes 6 issues, I think you will have made something that you can be proud of.
I appreciate it. Thank you guys so much for the time, and also for just asking a lot of questions that I thought were really interesting and fun. So, and even the ones I didn't know, I promise I will rewatch RoboCop. It's been a couple years, and I've had very stressful last couple of weeks. But
I think he was trying to get you a gotcha deep cut.
he got it. He won. Good for you.
No, no, that's not
Kidding.
me.
I am totally kidding. Hopefully, people won't like murder me just because I forgot the name of RoboCop.
Well, if any of those 40 to 60 listeners that we get per episode decide to, you just send them my way and I'll take care of them. But do you have any social medias that you'd like to share, or any websites?
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter and Instagram, Misty_Flores. Those are the two places that probably am the most vocal. I don't really do Facebook. It's just basically for my family, and like I post once like every 6 months, so it's very boring there. But definitely Twitter and Instagram. Once in a blue moon, you'll find me on Twitch when I'll stream, but usually I'll tell you on Twitter. But otherwise, that's where. And I'm excited for con season.
Great.
It's gonna be fun.
All right. Well, with that, you can find the podcast at I forgot what our Twitter handle is for a second. At Talking Smack Pod. Smack is spelled SMAC. You can find us on Twitch as the same, Talking Smack. You can email us at tsmackpod@gmail.com. You can follow me at Josh_Scar. Scar spelled SKAAR. Please like, rate, review, and subscribe to the Dead Lucky as early as you can, if not by July 11th. And Melissa, thank you again so much for being here. Everyone, thank you for listening. Take care.
Bye.
Watch Star Trek.